Hi guys, welcome to yet another episode of Microsoft ERP Beginners Tutorial Series. In today's episode, we are going to discuss about the batch number and the serial number features that are available within the Microsoft Dynamics 365. With that note, let's get into the episode. Hi guys, welcome back to another new video, and in this video we will be discussing about the serial numbers and the batch number capabilities that are available in Microsoft Dynamics 365. So serial number and batch numbers are called as a tracking dimension in Microsoft Dynamics 365. So as per the name indicates, it's a self-explanatory. We know what is a batch number and we know what is the serial number in the real life. To just give you a quick intro, the batch number is whenever you want to track the whole lot of items together in one specific unique identification number called as a batch number, then we use the batch number capability. The batch numbers are also called as a lot number or lot code in the business. So the batch number is primarily used in the food and beverage consumer goods or in the pharmaceutical industry, where the inspections and the quality check is very common. So we already covered about the quality inspection scenarios in some of our past episodes and the parts. If you have missed it, please do watch about the quality inspection. So in a case of a quality inspection, we take a sample size and do a quick quality check of a specific batch, and if the quality is failing, then it will be easier for you to do a forward and backward tracing to trace back to the original vendor and return back the whole batch of products to the vendor. So that is the batch identification number, which is tagged against a group of items primarily used in the food and beverage industry. Likewise, the serial number, on the other hand, is a unique identification number that is given to a specific item. So every single item have their own serial number. Serial numbers are generally used when the item's value is really high, and whenever you want to trace and track the item beyond the sales, even in the aftermarket area, for managing the warranties and recalls, it is very important for you to have a unique identification number against every single item. So the ADC motor being an automotive industry, we can consider that there are multiple spare parts in our organization, and each of the spare parts are very high value spare parts, and we are tracking the spare part within the inventory with a unique identification number. But not only within the inventory, but also once it has been sold to the customer, if there are any complaints from the customer, it's easier for us to trace back to the vendor for warranty claims processing. And likewise, if at all it is a device, that is, if it is a car in this case, bigger than a part, then in such cases a car might also have something like a recall. You might need to recall back the cars which are affected due to such specific manufacturing defects. Even in such recall incidents, the uh, the serial numbers, that is unique identification number against every single item, will be very, very useful. And another usage of serial number is there are certain industry which are highly regulated, and as part of regulatory compliance, it's required for them to manage a unique identification number for every single item they have in the inventory. For example, the medical device industry is a very classic example, where as per the FDA or other different government policies, it is necessary that every single medical devices are identified by the manufacturer with a unique identification number called as a UDI. In such cases, again, the serial numbers are mandatory for such items to be maintained. So this is the concept of a batch number and serial number in a high level. Okay, so now let's get into the system and see how do we use this batch number and serial number. So firstly, the batch number and serial number can be handled manually or automatic fashion. That is, the batch numbers will be generated automatically by the system. Likewise, serial number can be generated automatically by the system. But in the today's episode, we first going to focus on the serial number, and in this episode, we are not going to focus on the automatic serial number generation, but a manual serial number generation. Meaning, I'm going to assume that as and when I receive the stock, I will manually key in the serial numbers to the item and then register the serial number and then receive them to the inventory, because I'm assuming that I know the serial number only when the OEM provides me with the serial number. That happens only during the registration process or the receiving process. But there could be scenario where the serial numbers are internally tracked within your legal entity and you are the one who generates serial number using a specific number sequence. In such cases, you can use an automatic serial number feature that we will see in the subsequent sessions. So today we will be focusing on a manual serial number process. So in order for us to enable the serial number, we need to first start with the tracking dimension. So let's get into the tracking dimension. For getting into the tracking dimension, get into the product information management and get into the tracking dimension group. So under the tracking dimension group, you can create a new tracking dimension. Let's say test in this case. Um, Save it. So you will find a tracking dimension. So if you want to track the item with a batch number, then you need to also enable the batch number and assign this particular tracking dimension group to the item which you would like to track with the batch number. Or in our example today, we will be tracking the item with the serial number, so I'm going to only mark the serial number in this case. So whenever I'm marking the serial number, it's also important that we mark the physical inventory so that that dimension is physically tracked for the item. So more information on all of these options that are available in the tracking dimension group, we've already covered in the previous parts. So in the case of our YouTube series, I think the episode 8 do covers about some of the details of other features that are available in the tracking dimension group. But we will also review some of them today in the current episode. Okay. So in this case, you enable the serial number and then physical inventory. This is a minimal setup required. Just save it. And then if you are assigning this group to a specific item, then that particular item will be serial number tracked. But for today's video, I'm not going to use this particular tracking dimension group. I'm going to use this tracking dimension group. I've already created an item and I've assigned this particular tracking dimension group to the item. So now we will go ahead and receive the item and register the item with the serial number and then put them in the inventory and see how we do the whole process in Microsoft Dynamics 365. So for doing this process, I'm going to uh, use this particular part because this particular part is already assigned with the tracking dimension group serial that we have just reviewed. Okay, so let me just copy this part, get into the purchase order, new purchase order, vendor. So as usual, just go ahead and create a purchase order and put the item number here. And I'm going to order 2 quantities. So if you see here, since the item number is serial number traced, you will see the serial number field is enabled for us to key in the serial number. Okay, so now the first step is, as usual, go ahead and confirm the purchase order, and then you can go with the registration of the serial number against this particular purchase order. So let's first confirm this. It's confirmed. So now let's get into the line updates and do the registration process. So during the registration process, it is possible that you add the registration line and go in here and key in the serial number. Let's say T000001 is the serial number. So in this example, I'm giving a serial number for 2 quantity if you noticed. Okay, so I confirm the registration process, so the item is registered. So one thing that you would have noticed and got surprised is, in this example I have 2 items but I'm only giving 1 serial number for both the item, which actually doesn't solve the whole purpose of serial number. Meaning the serial number is we are using serial number because we track every single item with a unique identification number, but in this case system is letting me to actually use one serial number for 2 items, meaning the same serial number will be repeated for both the items. For example, for this particular item, if I get into the on hand inventory, I will see this particular serial number for both the items, which is not usual, or doesn't happen in the real life, but this is happening because Microsoft Dynamics 365 also allows you to have same serial number for two items. To avoid this behavior to happen, you might need to get into the tracking dimension group and enable the serial number control. Okay, in this case the serial number control is disabled, and that's the reason why the item is we are able to give the same serial number to two items. So I already have a tracking dimension with the serial number control enabled. Okay, so we will use an item that is tagged with v serial number, that is the tracking dimension group, and see what happens. So let me just quickly add another item. In this example, let me use that item. Okay, so save. So let me just change the quantity to. Okay, now let's try to register this. And one thing I want to show is for this particular item, the tracking dimension group is different. That is, if I go into this item and open the track dimension, the serial number control is enabled. Okay, so now let's go and register it. Oh, sorry, I do add it 2002. So I'm trying to give the serial number to two quantities. So in this example, if I try to save it and confirm the registration, the system won't let me do it because a quantity other than one cannot be updated against the serial number, because in this example we have enabled the serial number control. So in this example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to split the lines into two lines so that every line is having one quantity, and then I will go and register the serial number. So choose all the lines, register. So P0002 P0003. Since it's a we are exploring the manual serial number process, I'm manually entering the serial number and registering it. So the serial number already exists. So as I said, I cannot use the same serial number. So let me just try to change it and register it. So now what we can do is, if I go to that particular item, let's say this one, and check the on-hand inventory, I will see that there are two items with a unique serial number identification available. Okay, so that is the difference of the difference between the serial number control when it is enabled and disabled, which is very important that you always enable this so every single item have a unique serial number. So that is one thing which I want to show you. Now let's add another item, and let's say the same item with a unique serial identification number. So let me just save it and change the quantity to 5. Okay, so now I can go ahead and let's say that um, uh, register the serial number. So I can go into the line update registration process, and here it is possible that I can go and split the quantity 5 times, and make it all one line, and then add all of the 5 lines here and then register. That's one way of doing. Or another way of doing is, during the manual serial number creation process, you can use the serial number creation option. So the start is 10, and I can specify the format. In our case, the format is T. Format is T. Uh, or maybe I will just give another format for now. D. Uh, hash 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 hash. Okay, so in this case, if I go, the system will automatically create the serial number with that format and add 1. So now I will be able to register the serial number. So if I go to that particular item, which is this, I think, um, on hand inventory, I'll see that we have 5 and we have others also. So this is another way that I can manually create a serial number. um, it is also possible if I missed to actually create a serial number, let's say during the registration process. It's also possible that when you are doing the confirmation and receiving, it is also possible for you to go and register the serial number during the receiving process. So when you are doing a product receipt, um, during receiving the item, if you haven't registered already, it's also possible for you to register here. So in this case, you can quickly register and also receive the item at once, back to back. Okay, so it all depends on the customer requirement and depends on how the customer wants to do it. So let's explore more scenarios related with the manual serial number. So let's say that adding a I'm creating a PO, and adding a item to the PO. Let me copy the item number. Let's say, okay, let's say this item. So you have added the item number and also the quantity is available. So in this case, we all know that we need to register the serial number. But if we are not registering the serial number, and let's say we are directly trying to receive the item, and even during the receiving process, you have an ability to register the serial number, but I decide not to register the serial number at all. I'm directly going and receiving it, but the serial number tracking dimension is enabled for the item. In such cases, you will not be able to receive the item because the serial number is enabled, right? So system throws you an error saying that the serial number is required. Okay, but there are certain exception to this particular rule, meaning let me create another PO. Let me create another PO, because there could be a scenario where um, you may need to track the serial number sometimes while receiving, or you don't need to really track the serial number while receiving, but during the sales process you definitely want to generate a serial number. So meaning, during the purchase process you do not want a serial number, but during the sales process you definitely want a serial number. It could be a scenario where you're using serial number just for the sake of aftermarket, that is recalls, or for the warranty, but you really do not want to have the serial number during the procurement process or inventory management, because for your inventory you are not following any serial number tracking. Look, in such cases, most likely you won't capture the serial number during the purchase process, rather you prefer doing it only during the sales process. Okay, so let's say such a scenario and create a quick purchase order, and in the purchase order let me add the item line. So in this example, I'm going to pick this item. So this item is picked, and if you see, the serial number is enabled. Okay, serial number is enabled. So we have seen in the previous example, whenever the serial number is not is enabled, I need to register the serial number using the registration button. But in this example, I'm not going to register the serial number. I'm directly going to confirm the purchase order and receive the serial number and see whether we get a bug or defect or not, like how we received it in the previous scenario, right? So if I go and receive this particular item, I need to put the GRN number here and go ahead and receive. Previously, when we tried to do the same, we received an error stating that the serial number needs to be filled in. But in this case, you won't get the error. You will still be able to receive the item even without keying in the serial number. You know why? Let me first show you the item. That's the item, I think. Yeah, that's one. And if I go to the on-hand inventory, even though the serial number is tracked, but for this item, even though it's in stock, the serial number is blank. So you know how we achieved it? It's because if you get into this item and get into this particular tracking dimension group, edit it. So under the tracking dimension group, I have enabled bank receipt allowed. So when I enable the bank receipt allowed, then that means that the capturing of serial number during the receipt process becomes optional. System will still allow you to receive a PO even if you don't capture the serial number. Likewise, blank issue allowed is even the serial number captured in the sales cycle will become optional. But in this example, it is an optional during the purchase cycle, but it's mandatory to generate a serial number during the picking or packing slip process in your sales order. Maybe in future when we do a sales order flow, I will show you a scenario, an example using the serial number for the sales side. So that is because of this blank receipt allow is checkbox is checked, the system is still letting me to process the purchase order even if there is no um, a serial number being captured during the PO process. So there is also another possible scenario, which is let me also quickly create another PO. So this one, and this is the item number. So let me try to use another item. I think it's 105. Yeah, that one. Okay, so now it's okay. One quantity. And now if I try to see, the serial number field is disabled. It's not because the tracking dimension is not serial number tracked. Tracking dimension is serial number tracked. If I get into this item, okay, uh, I'm using this particular tracking dimension group. Serial number is enabled, but the thing here is difference between the previous scenario and this scenario is the serial number is not active here, but it is active here. If I activate the serial number here in the second row, it says active in the sales process, meaning the serial number is considered, it's not even available during the purchase process. But in the earlier scenario, we have activated the serial number here, but we have blocked only during the receipt process manually by clicking on the blank receipts. In such cases, it becomes optional. I will still be able to key in the serial number if needed even during the purchase process because it's only optional, it's not completely removed. But if I enable this option here under the sales process, then in such cases the serial number is only active during the sales journey, sales side of things. That is, you have to generate a serial number while you are doing a packing slip or by using automatic serial number generation feature. Let's try one more scenario um, where another way that we can register the serial number. So for that, I will create a new purchase order. Let me use this item. Okay, so let me use this item. So for registering the serial number, we know that we confirm it and then we register from the registration option available under the line update. Or another method that I have mentioned is you can do the registration during the purchase receipt process. And another way that you can also register is through the item arrival journal. So if I go to the inventory management and item arrival, new purchase order, that's the vendor, and let me paste the purchase order number 1 and that's the warehouse number. Go ahead. So you have to refresh your memory on the arrival journal that we have covered in some of our earlier parts. So we use the create button to go and fetch the line from PO. So for that item, we have one quantity here. So in this particular scenario, it is possible for you to either create it, or either create using create button, or you will also be able to uh, add the serial number, okay, and uh, register the serial number here. Okay, so now let's post the arrival journal, and you will see that the serial number is registered. That's another third method where you can register the serial number using a arrival journal. And on top of all of this, let's say we are getting into this particular item. So for this particular item, um, I'm having this tracking dimension group, and this particular checkbox is enabled, which is for the purchase price checkbox is enabled for against the serial number tracking dimension. So what is the purpose of this purchase price when it is enabled is, so whenever it is enabled, it will be possible for us to create a trade agreement specific to a serial number. Okay, so for example, in this case, let's say that we are creating a trade agreement, add a new line, price agreement, lines, and you are choosing the item number. I don't remember the item number. I think it's 103. So when I do so, it is possible for me to map a serial number which is on hand against this particular thing. Let's say that serial number, and you can give a price specific to that serial number and post it. Okay, so in such scenarios, you will have a special price for every different serial numbers. Okay, so that is only possible when you are enabling the purchase price within the tracking dimension. Similarly, purchase price is also available for the sales order as well. So you have a sales order specific price for every single serial numbers. So this is a high level overview of the manual serial number in Microsoft Dynamics 365. In the next episode, we will review about the automatic serial number feature that are available, and how do we use the automatic serial number, what are the features available within the automatic serial number in the next episode. Until then, bye.